What is schizophrenia?
So it's a mental health disorder. There's different levels to schizophrenia. From what I understand, paranoid schizophrenia is like the highest form of schizophrenia you could have. That's his diagnosis. It brings hallucinations. There's random cloudiness, like he'll just be talking a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. He's always like paranoid, like the police was after him. There's nobody out, like I couldn't say his name because he thought if I said it too loud that the government would hear him and know where he was. He got rid of his driver's license, birth certificate, social security card. He didn't want to be identified because he felt like he was in trouble and they were after him. So the biggest part of it is the hallucinations, having a mindset of homelessness. Sometimes people get off into more hardcore drugs, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the Black community, I'm projecting at this point, mental health just ain't something we got a lot of familiarity with.
Right. Growing up, if people displayed certain type of behaviors, oh, that's their personality, or, they crazy, don't pay them no mind. But really, these people needed help. And so when my son started presenting symptoms, I just stopped talking to people that I knew about it because, like I said, I got treated like, no, he just faking. Like, no, I know my son. I live with him every single day. Like, I think a parent knows when something is not right with their child or children. Yeah. And so I'm the kind of person, I'll just take the bull by the horn. Like, I don't want to talk to nobody about it. Let me just deal with it the way I deal with it. And so that's what I did. And once I start dealing with that aspect of mental health, it made me look at every homeless person in a different light. It just opened my eyes to something that I had never known or seen before. And it made me really start researching this disease. And, people can live a healthy, successful life, but they have to be on a plan. They have to talk to their psychiatrist. They have to be on the meds. But I believe God is going to heal my son completely. One day. I don't know when that day is going to be, but in the meantime, we need to stay focused on the plan that's going to allow him to be successful. And so that's why my nonprofit now is based around mental health and advocating for those who are struggling, like my son. A lot of people, like I was sharing with you earlier, look at me when I say, oh, I'm his guardian and conservator. Like, okay, you got documents? Like, you went to court? Like, people give me these questions and these looks. Like, okay, this Black woman is her son's guardian. I didn't know about guardian and conservatorship until I kept having to call the police on my son. And then the police would say, well, are you his guardian? If you're not, we can't do anything. We can't chase him. If he decides to go to the hospital and they release him, he's released. I remember one time he went to the emergency room, they put him in a cab and sent him to the homeless shelter. So I knew then I have to figure out what this guardianship thing is. And I reached out to a cousin of mine who is a social worker, and she was like, yeah, this is what you need to do. So I had to hire an attorney to fight for me, so that I can be that for my son. And I now help other families who have questions or concerns. And it's crazy because I have a petition on change.org who are advocating for adults who have guardianship and or conservatorship for their loved ones. So in Missouri, where we started out, is guardianship and conservatorship. When my son was in California, they only recognized conservatorship. And even though I have both, because I didn't have it through the state of California, they were giving me a very hard time.
So hold on one second. Help me understand what issues you were having and then how having those things helped you with those issues.
So When I went to the state of California, if anybody has ever had to deal with them from a legal standpoint, they feel like they're exclusive. Let me just say that. And so when my son was down there and I was ready, when I just went to get him in February, I was showing them my paperwork. This is court documentation, okay, that I am his legal guardian and conservator. He is deemed 100% incapacitated to care for himself. This is all documented. And I kept being told, well, it's not for the state of California, which only recognizes conservatorship for adults, elderly adults or adults with mental health issues. They only recognize conservatorship.
What is conservatorship?
It's you're in charge of their estate, their finances, their estate, everything.
Okay.
With guardianship, you're able to make decisions on their behalf that they can't do for themselves. It's almost one and the same. There's only slight differences. But with California, within this dynamic, they only recognize conservatorship. Guardianship is for children that are under the age of 18, I believe, from what I read. And this is all stuff I had to research before I even went down there. So I talked to an attorney before I went because I thought, well, maybe I need to hire somebody and get it transferred, to that state since that's where my son was. But then I thought about it. I was like, I'm not about to keep going from the East Coast to the West Coast, back and forth, like I had already been doing because I knew he was out there in a homeless community. So while I was out there, they were like, well, we can't talk to you. He still has rights because he's an adult, was giving me all kind of pushback. It was nothing but God. I was like, I'll camp out outside this hospital until y'all recognize my paperwork. But I'm going to take my son back to Georgia with me, period. And I guess they saw that I was not playing. And I refused to leave without my son. And so finally they complied. I handed them my documents so they can have copies, everything like that. And it was just favor of God, to be honest. It was nothing else because everybody was just like, no.
I imagine you facing a lot of issues, a lot of challenges with dealing with a son who is an adult with mental health issues. Is that one of the biggest that you have as it relates to that from being able to manage standpoint?
Yeah, because you look forward, you see your children growing up, you look forward to them being independent, doing their own thing, being successful, having relationships, maybe children, at most working, doing the thing. But the fact that I still have to take care of him, I have to make all of these arrangements. And I'm not complaining, so don't look at it as complaining, but it's just like, okay, now I have this responsibility that I didn't think that I would have. But it would be no different if he was diagnosed with a terminal illness. I would step up and do the same thing. So just because it's mental doesn't mean that I'm gonna back off. He's still my son. I still love him and I want him to have a healthy, full life. So I'll do whatever it takes.